If you've ever wondered how quickly money can destroy a family, stick around. This story will shock you. And if you enjoy these real-life stories, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow. My name is David, and I'm about to tell you how finding a fortune in my mother's living room destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family. It was a cold December morning in 2023 when I got the call that changed everything. Mom had fallen and broken her hip. At 78, living alone in that big house in suburban Cleveland, we all knew this day would come. My sister Rachel drove up from Cincinnati, and my brother Mike flew in from Portland. We hadn't all been in the same room for 3 years. The house smelled like lavender and old memories. Mom's condition was stable, but the doctor said recovery would be long. We decided someone needed to stay and help her when she got home. That's when the argument started. "I can't just drop everything and move back to Ohio," Mike said, pacing around the living room where we'd had countless family meetings over the years. "Well, I've got 3 kids and a husband," Rachel shot back. "My life is in Cincinnati now. I was the unmarried one, the one who had it easier, according to them. Funny how being 35 and single suddenly made me everyone's first choice for family obligations." We were standing there, same old family dynamics playing out, when Rachel accidentally knocked over Mom's favorite lamp, the one with the heavy brass base she'd had since the 70s. As it crashed to the hardwood floor, something extraordinary happened. The impact loosened one of the floorboards underneath, and there, in a gap we'd never noticed, was the corner of what looked like a metal box. "What the hell is that?" Mike whispered. My hands were shaking as I pried up the loose board. The box was heavier than I expected. An old steel lockbox, the kind you'd keep important documents in. There was no lock, just a simple latch that opened with a click that echoed through the suddenly silent room. Inside were stacks and stacks of $100 bills. Not just a few, we're talking about what had to be tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more. Underneath the money were old documents, some dating back to the 1980s. "Jesus Christ," Rachel breathed. "Where did Mom get this kind of money?" But what we found next made the cash seem insignificant. At the bottom of the box was a letter in Mom's handwriting, dated just 2 years ago. The first line made my blood run cold. "If you're reading this, then you've found what I've been hiding from you all these years. My dear children, if you're reading this, then you've found what I've been hiding from you all these years. I hope you can forgive me for what I'm about to tell you, but I need you to understand that everything I did for this family." We sat on Mom's old couch, the 3 of us crowded together like we used to do as kids, passing the letter between us. Rachel's hands were trembling as she continued reading aloud. "The money you've found, there's $127,000 in total, came from a decision I made 35 years ago that I've regretted every single day since. When your father lost his job at the steel plant in 1988, we were 3 months behind on the mortgage. The bank was going to foreclose. We had no savings, no family to turn to, and 3 young children to feed. I remembered that time vaguely. I was only 8. But I remembered the hushed conversations between Mom and Dad, the way Dad would sit at the kitchen table staring at bills, the way Mom's smile became forced and brittle. A man came to me, someone who knew about our situation. He offered me $50,000 cash, enough to save the house and get us back on our feet. All I had to do was let him use our basement for storage for a few months. He said it was just business inventory, nothing illegal, nothing dangerous. "Oh God," Mike whispered. "Please tell me she didn't." I knew it wasn't inventory. I wasn't stupid, but I was desperate, and I told myself that whatever was in those boxes, it wasn't my business. For 3 months, men came and went through our basement. You children never knew. I made sure of that. Your father never knew either. This was my burden to carry alone. The letter went on to describe how, after those 3 months, the man gave Mom an additional $80,000 as a bonus for her discretion. She'd been sitting on this money for over 3 decades, too afraid to spend it, too guilty to throw it away. "I want you to have this money, but I need you to know the truth. Use it wisely, use it together, and please don't let my mistakes tear our family apart. But as I looked at my siblings' faces, I could already see it was too late for that. We need to tell the police, I said, the words hanging in the air like smoke. Mike laughed, but there was no humor in it. Tell them what, exactly? That our mother helped some criminals 35 years ago? That we found money that might be connected to God knows what? It's not about the money, Mike. It's about doing what's right. Don't lecture me about doing what's right, David. Mike's voice had that edge it got when he felt cornered. You want to destroy Mom's reputation? Put her in jail? She's 78 years old with a broken hip. Rachel was strangely quiet, staring at the stacks of bills we'd laid out on the coffee table. There's something else, she said finally. Look at these dates on the bank receipts. She'd been going through the other documents in the box. There were deposit slips, all for small amounts, $200 here, $500 there, dating from 1989 all the way up to 2015. She was slowly laundering it, Rachel said, depositing small amounts over decades so it wouldn't raise flags. Mom wasn't just a desperate mother who made one bad choice. She was covering her tracks for 26 years. The room felt smaller suddenly. This wasn't just about some money hidden under floorboards. This was about discovering that the woman who raised us, who taught us right from wrong, who grounded us when we lied about homework, had been living a lie for most of our lives. I think we should each take our share and forget we ever found this, Mike said. Split it 3 ways, about 42 grand each. That's life-changing money for all of us. You can't be serious, I said. I'm dead serious. You want to pay off your student loans? Here's your chance. Rachel, you and Tom have been talking about renovating your kitchen for years, and I could finally put a down payment on that house in Oregon. I watched my brother's face as he spoke, and I realized something that chilled me. Mike had already decided. In his mind, that money was already his, and the way Rachel was looking at those bills, I could see she was wavering too. We don't even know what crime this money came from, I said. What if it's drug money? What if people died because of whatever Mom helped with? That's not our fault, Mike shot back. We were kids. We had nothing to do with it. But we have everything to do with what we choose now. The argument that followed was ugly. Words were said that couldn't be taken back. Mike accused me of being self-righteous. I accused him of being a hypocrite. Rachel tried to play peacemaker, but I could see which way she was leaning. By the time visiting hours ended at the hospital that evening, we weren't speaking to each other, and Mom, lying in that hospital bed with her broken hip, had no idea that her secret had already started destroying the family she'd tried so hard to protect. I couldn't sleep that night. While Mike and Rachel went to their respective hotels, I stayed at Mom's house, surrounded by the ghost of her secret. I kept staring at that loose floorboard, wondering what other secrets might be hiding in the walls of the house I grew up in. By morning, I'd made my decision. I was going to find out the truth, whether my siblings wanted to or not. I started with the documents in the box. There were names I didn't recognize, addresses from the east side of Cleveland that I vaguely remembered Dad mentioning as rough neighborhoods. One name kept appearing, Vincent Torino. A quick Google search made my stomach drop. Vincent Torino had been arrested in 1991 on federal racketeering charges. The FBI had linked him to a major cocaine distribution network that operated throughout Ohio in the late 80s and early 90s. He died in federal prison in 2003. Mom had been storing drugs. There was no other explanation. When Rachel and Mike came by the next morning to check on the house, I showed them what I'd found. Rachel went pale. Mike just got angry. You had no right to go digging into this without us, he said. We had every right to know what we're dealing with, I shot back. This isn't just some victimless white-collar crime, Mike. This is drug money. People probably died because of what was stored in our basement. People we don't know, from crimes that happened before we were adults, Mike said. It doesn't change anything, but it changed everything for me. The money felt poisoned now. Every bill carried the weight of unknown victims, unknown families, destroyed by whatever drugs had passed through our childhood home. I'm going to the FBI, I announced. Rachel jumped up from her chair. David, please, let's think about this. If you go to the authorities, this becomes public. Everyone in the neighborhood will know. Mom's friends, the people at her church. And what about us? Mike added. You think this won't affect our careers, our reputations? I work in finance, David. I can't have my name associated with money laundering, even if it happened when I was a kid. I looked at my siblings, really looked at them. These were people I'd grown up with, people I'd trusted with my deepest secrets, people I thought I knew better than anyone, but all I saw now were strangers, people willing to profit from crimes that had probably destroyed other families. So what are you suggesting? I asked. That we just take the money and pretend this never happened? Yes, Mike said without hesitation. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. Rachel nodded slowly. Mom made her choice 35 years ago. She's lived with the consequences all this time. Why should we destroy her now and ourselves for something we had no control over? I realized then that I was completely alone in this. My own family had already chosen money over morality, and they couldn't understand why I wouldn't make the same choice. That's when I made the second decision that would tear our family apart forever. I didn't tell them I was going to the FBI that afternoon. I figured if I talked to an agent first, got some advice about how to handle this properly, maybe I could convince Mike and Rachel to do the right thing voluntarily. The Cleveland FBI field office was a sterile government building downtown, the kind of place that made you feel guilty just for walking through the doors. Agent Sarah Chen was younger than I expected, probably in her early 30s, with sharp eyes that made me feel like she was analyzing every word I said. So you're telling me your mother may have unknowingly assisted in a drug operation in the late 1980s, she asked after I'd explained the situation. Not unknowingly, I said. According to her letter, she suspected what was happening. She just didn't ask questions. Agent Chen took notes as I talked, occasionally asking for clarification. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied me. Mr. Morrison, you need to understand something. If we investigate this, it becomes an official federal inquiry. Your mother could face charges, even at her age. The money will be seized as evidence. Your family's finances will be scrutinized going back decades. I understand that. Do you? Because once we start this process, there's no going back. Are you prepared for your mother to potentially spend her remaining years in federal prison? The question hit me like a physical blow. I thought about Mom lying in that hospital bed, fragile and broken. Could I really be responsible for putting her behind bars? But then I thought about the families destroyed by drugs, about the victims of Vincent Torino's network, about the principle of justice that seemed to matter so little to my siblings. I need to do what's right, I said. Agent Chen nodded. I'll need you to bring us the money and all the documents. We'll start a preliminary investigation, see what we can piece together about Torino's operation and your mother's involvement. I drove back to Mom's house feeling like I was carrying a weight that might crush me. Mike and Rachel were waiting in the living room when I walked in. Where have you been? Rachel asked. I could have lied. I could have made up some story about running errands or visiting Mom at the hospital. Instead, I told them the truth. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. You son of a bitch, Mike whispered. You actually did it. You turned in our own mother. I did what was right, I said, but the words sounded hollow even to me. Rachel was crying now. How could you do this to us? To her? She's in the hospital, David. She's broken and old and scared, and you just signed her death warrant. The FBI said, I don't care what the FBI said. Mike was shouting now, his face red with rage. You betrayed your own family. You chose strangers over the people who love you. That's when Rachel said the words that I knew would haunt me forever. Mom is going to die, knowing that her son destroyed everything she sacrificed for. We had to tell Mom. There was no way around it. The FBI would be contacting her within 24 hours, and she deserved to hear it from us first. The drive to the hospital was the longest 20 minutes of my life, with Mike and Rachel sitting in stony silence while I tried to figure out what I was going to say. Mom looked so small in that hospital bed, surrounded by machines and tubes. Her face lit up when she saw the three of us walk in together. "My babies," she said, her voice weak but warm. "All three of you here. This is the best medicine I could ask for." Rachel broke down immediately. She couldn't even look at Mom, just stood in the corner crying while Mike and I approached the bed. I'd never felt like more of a monster in my entire life. "Mom," I started, my voice cracking. "We need to talk to you about something. We found the box." The change in her expression was immediate. The joy drained from her face, replaced by something I'd never seen there before. Genuine fear. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh, no." "We read your letter," Mike said, his voice gentler than it had been with me. "We know what you did, and we know why you did it." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted you children to know. I thought I could take this secret to my grave." "Mom," I said, and then I had to stop. "How do you tell your mother that you've just destroyed her life, that you've chosen abstract justice over the woman who raised you?" "What is it, David?" she asked. "What's wrong?" "I went to the FBI." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Mom's face went white, whiter than the hospital sheets. For a moment, I thought she might be having a heart attack. "You did what?" she whispered. "I told them about the money, about Vincent Torino. They're going to investigate." Mom looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not disappointment, but something worse. Complete and utter betrayal. "How could you?" she asked, her voice so quiet I had to lean in to hear her. "I did everything for you children. Everything. I sacrificed my conscience, my peace of mind, my ability to sleep at night, all to keep this family together. And you—" She couldn't finish the sentence. She just turned her face away from me, toward the wall. "Mom, please understand," I said. "It wasn't right to keep that money. People were hurt. People died." "Shut up." Her voice was steel now, harder than I'd ever heard it. "Just shut up and get out of my room." "Mom, get out!" The scream brought nurses running. Mike and Rachel rushed to comfort her while I stood there, frozen, watching the woman who'd raised me look at me like I was a stranger, like I was the enemy. Security escorted me from the hospital. As I walked through those sliding glass doors, I realized I'd just lost my family forever. And the worst part was, I still wasn't sure I'd made the wrong choice. The FBI investigation moved faster than I'd expected. Within a week, Agent Chen called to update me on what they'd discovered, and it was worse than any of us had imagined. Vincent Torino's operation was responsible for distributing over 200 kilograms of cocaine through Cleveland between 1987 and 1991, she told me over the phone. "We've connected it to at least 6 overdose deaths and numerous other crimes committed by addicts trying to get money for drugs." I felt sick, and my mother's basement was part of all that. "Based on the timeline and the documents you provided, yes. It appears your mother's house was used as a temporary storage facility during a crucial period when Torino was expanding his distribution network. The money was officially seized as evidence. All $127,000 of it, plus interest, the FBI calculated Mom had earned from her careful laundering over the years. They froze her bank accounts pending investigation. Mike and Rachel blamed me for everything. They'd hired a lawyer, an expensive criminal defense attorney who specialized in federal cases, and they were spending their own savings to protect Mom. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were using their legitimate money to fight charges related to illegitimate money they'd wanted to keep. "The lawyer says there's a chance Mom won't go to prison because of her age and health," Rachel told me during one of our increasingly rare phone calls. "But David, she'll never recover from this. The stress, the publicity, the shame. You've killed our mother." I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, I was starting to wonder if Rachel was right. The story hit the local news. Elderly woman charged in connection to 1980s drug operation. They didn't use Mom's name in the headline, but everyone in the neighborhood knew. Her church friends stopped visiting. Neighbors who'd known her for 30 years crossed the street to avoid her house. I was staying at a hotel now. I couldn't bear to be in Mom's house, surrounded by the debris of her secret life, but I also couldn't leave Cleveland, not with everything falling apart. That's when I got the call that changed everything again. Agent Chen's voice was different this time, more cautious. "David, we need to talk. There's been a development in the case that you need to know about." Agent Chen met me at a coffee shop near the FBI building. She looked tired, like she'd been working around the clock. "We've been going through Vincent Torino's old case files," she said, sliding a manila folder across the table, "cross-referencing with the timeline from your mother's situation. David, there's something you need to see." Inside the folder were photocopied documents from Torino's FBI file, surveillance reports, wiretap transcripts, informant testimonies. As I read through them, one detail kept jumping out at me. "Operation Clean Sweep," I read aloud. "What's this?" It was an undercover operation that ran from 1988 to 1991. The FBI was working with several civilian informants to gather evidence on Torino's network. Agent Chen paused, watching my face carefully. "David, your mother's name appears in these files, not as a suspect." The words didn't make sense at first. I read the relevant passages 3 times before their meaning sank in. Subject Patricia Morrison has agreed to assist in the investigation of Vincent Torino and associated criminal enterprises. Subject will allow controlled access to her residence for surveillance purposes and evidence gathering. Subject's cooperation is voluntary and motivated by her desire to protect her family and community from drug-related violence. "My mother was working with the FBI?" I whispered. "Not officially. She was what we call a cooperating civilian, and someone who provided assistance without being a registered informant. According to these files, she contacted us after Torino approached her about using her basement." Agent Chen pulled out another document. "She wore a wire, David. For 3 months, she recorded conversations with Torino's people. Her intelligence was crucial to building the case that eventually sent him to prison." I felt like the world was spinning around me. Everything I thought I knew was wrong. Again. "The money?" I asked. "Payment for her cooperation and compensation for the risk she took. The FBI couldn't pay her officially. Budget rules, paperwork issues, so they arranged for Torino's organization to bonus her as part of their cover. She kept it because she'd earned it, and because spending it too quickly would have blown her cover. So she was a hero." Agent Chen nodded. "She helped us shut down a major drug operation. Those 6 people who died from Torino's cocaine. Without your mother's help, that number would have been much higher." I sat there in stunned silence, processing the magnitude of what this meant. Mom hadn't been a criminal. She'd been working with law enforcement. She'd risked her life and her family's safety to help stop the exact kind of criminals I'd thought she was helping. "Why didn't she tell us?" I asked. "Because she couldn't. The agreement included a lifelong non-disclosure clause for her protection. Even after Torino died, there were still members of his organization who might have wanted revenge if they'd known she was the one who helped bring him down." Agent Chen leaned forward. "David, your mother couldn't tell you the truth even when you found that money. She was still bound by her agreement with the Bureau. She let you think she was a criminal to protect a secret that was actually about her being a hero." The guilt hit me like a freight train. I had destroyed my mother's reputation, her health, her final years, all because I'd been too self-righteous to trust her. I'd chosen my version of justice over faith in the woman who'd raised me, and now it was too late to take any of it back. I ran out of that coffee shop and drove straight to the hospital, breaking every speed limit between downtown and Mom's room. I had to tell her I knew the truth, had to apologize, had to somehow fix what I'd broken. But when I got to her floor, Mike and Rachel were standing outside her room with the doctor, and I could tell from their faces that something was wrong. "Where have you been?" Rachel demanded. "We've been calling you for hours." "What's happening?" The doctor stepped forward. "Your mother had a stroke this morning, a significant one. She's stable now, but—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Her speech is affected, and we're not sure how much of her cognitive function will return." I pushed past them into the room. Mom was awake, but she looked different, smaller somehow, more fragile. When she saw me, she tried to speak, but the words came out slurred and confused. "Mom," I said, taking her hand, I know the truth about what you did. You were helping the FBI. You were one of the good guys." She squeezed my hand weakly, and I thought I saw understanding in her eyes. But when she tried to respond, only garbled sounds came out. "It's too late," Mike said from behind me. The stress of the investigation, the shame, the betrayal, it was too much for her heart. I turned to face my siblings. Rachel was crying again, but Mike just looked at me with cold fury. "Are you happy now?" he asked. "You got your justice. You destroyed a woman who was actually trying to do the right thing." "I didn't know." "You didn't want to know. You were so convinced you had the moral high ground that you didn't stop to think about what you might be wrong about." Agent Chen had followed me to the hospital. She explained everything to Mike and Rachel. Mom's cooperation with the FBI, the real reason she'd kept the money, the non-disclosure agreement that had prevented her from defending herself. "The charges against your mother are being dropped," she told us. "The money will be returned to her estate. We're also looking into providing compensation for the medical expenses related to this investigation." It was too little, too late. The damage was done. Mom's stroke had left her unable to care for herself. Her house would have to be sold to pay for nursing care. Her reputation in the community was destroyed. Her golden years were going to be spent in a medical facility instead of in the home she'd fought so hard to keep, all because I'd been too arrogant to trust her. As I sat by her bedside that night, holding her hand while she slept, I realized that there are different kinds of justice in this world. There's the kind I'd thought I was pursuing, abstract, black and white, based on rules and laws. And then there's the kind Mom had lived her whole life, messy, complicated, based on protecting the people you love. I'd chosen the first kind, and it had destroyed everything that mattered. 6 months later, I was cleaning out Mom's house, preparing it for sale. She was in a memory care facility now, her stroke having progressed to the point where she didn't recognize any of us most days. On her good days, she would look at me with confusion, as if trying to remember why seeing me made her so sad. Mike and Rachel weren't speaking to me. They visited Mom regularly, but they arranged their schedules to avoid me. At family meetings with her doctors and lawyers, we were civil but cold, professional, like strangers handling a business transaction. I'd found another letter while packing up Mum's bedroom. This one was older, written in 1991, right after Torino went to prison. "My dear children," it began, "if something happens to me, I want you to know that the money hidden in the living room came from trying to do the right thing. I can't tell you the details. I've promised not to, but I want you to know that I never betrayed the values I tried to teach you. Sometimes doing the right thing means making choices that look wrong to everyone else." She'd been trying to tell us the truth all along, in the only way she could. The house sold quickly. A young family with small children, excited about the big backyard and the good school district. I wondered if they'd ever discover any secrets hidden in the walls, or if Mum's was the only one. The money from the sale, plus the FBI's returned funds and compensation, was enough to ensure Mum's care for the rest of her life. It was a bitter irony. The fortune that had torn our family apart was now paying for her to live comfortably while her family remained broken. I moved back to my apartment across town, back to my old life, but nothing was the same. I'd learned something about justice that they don't teach you in ethics classes or Sunday school. Sometimes the right thing and the good thing aren't the same. Sometimes pursuing justice means destroying the people you're trying to protect. Mike was right about one thing. I'd been self-righteous. I'd been so sure I knew better than everyone else that I'd forgotten the most important truth. The people who love you deserve the benefit of the doubt, especially when you don't understand their choices. Mom had made an impossible decision 35 years ago. She'd risked everything to help stop criminals, then spent decades carrying the burden of a secret she couldn't share. She'd protected her family, her community, and her country, and in return, she'd gotten a lifetime of sleepless nights and a son who betrayed her when she needed him most. 6 months after finding that money, I finally understood what Mom had been trying to teach me my whole life. Sometimes love means trusting people, even when their actions don't make sense to you. Sometimes family means having faith in someone's goodness, even when the evidence points the other way. I'd learned that lesson too late to save my family, but I'd learned it, and maybe that was something. The last time I visited Mom, she was having one of her rare good days. She recognized me, squeezed my hand, and whispered something I could barely hear. "I forgive you." Those were the last words my mother ever spoke to me. She died 3 weeks later in her sleep. Mike and Rachel handled the funeral arrangements. I watched from the back of the church as they buried the woman who'd raised me, surrounded by the community she'd protected and the family she'd lost. They never found out how much their justice had cost them until it was too late to matter. This story shows how quickly secrets can destroy everything we hold dear. Sometimes the truth we think we need isn't the truth that will set us free. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to hear more real-life stories like this one. And remember, sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is trust the people who love you, even when you don't understand their choices. Thanks for watching.